Here's a map showing which U.S. states enforce seatbelts. Talk about taking away freedoms. So in the red states, these are primary enforcements, which means police can pull you over if they see you without a seatbelt. In the yellow, they're secondary enforcement, which means they can't pull you over, but if they do pull you over for something else and see you're also not wearing your seatbelt, they'll give you an extra ticket for it. The orange are similar to that. It just depends on certain age groups. It probably has to do with kids. Maybe they're okay with kids not wearing a seatbelt. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe, I don't know. A primary under certain ages. Oh, yeah. So they need the kids to, if you're an adult, it's cool. And then there's big, beautiful New Hampshire. Libertarian AF. So it's not at all enforced for adults, but it is enforced for children. I actually did not even realize you didn't have to wear your seatbelt in New Hampshire. How did New Hampshire just like quietly never make a law that talks about this? The first state ever to do primary enforcement was New York in 1984. I don't know why I thought there was always seatbelt laws. Seems pretty late for them to enforce that. There are actually a few places around the world that also don't have any laws. Bolivia in South America, a couple spots in Africa, Afghanistan, Yemen, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. As always with these maps, it's sometimes hard to put the US in one category since we have states with different laws all the time. I recently saw an animation which I can't show you, but it displays exactly why seatbelts are really important. The percent of US population that works outside of their state of residence. And this is one of the more interesting US maps I've seen because it's all along the borders, obviously. So if you live in one state but work in another, chances are you're gonna live in a county that is just along the border. But it makes this map like really fascinating to look at, especially on the East Coast. So obviously there's a lot more examples of this on this side of the country because the states are just smaller in general. Nevada's the only state with only one county, which I don't know why that surprised me. For some reason I thought there'd be a couple people living in Vegas but working in California, but no, that doesn't make any sense. There's like no work really at this part of California. If you live in Vegas, you more than likely work in Vegas. What's even crazier is to see that Alaska and Hawaii even have anything above zero. I'm just going to assume 0.38% of Hawaiians don't have normal jobs. Maybe it's like remote work and that's what classifies as they live in one state and work in another. I feel like even 0.5% is pretty high. Now instantly off the top of my head, I'd imagine the #1 spot for this has to be between Kansas and Missouri, since like a lot of Kansas City is literally kind of in Missouri. But I completely forgot about the existence of Washington, D.C. I mean, I guess that kind of counts. Washington, D.C. is like a city-state. But there's also really high rates of this along the northeast, just because, again, the states are just really small, and especially in New Jersey, really high chance that you're probably, maybe working in Manhattan, New York. This is so interesting because it really kind of just comes down to geography. This weird, like, peninsula that West Virginia has is really high. They live on this tail of West Virginia, but work in Maryland or just regular Virginia. That just... The top states for this are DC, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, West Virginia, and Delaware. This dark red, though, indicates that more than 40% of the workforce live in one state and work in another. That is an insanely high number, like for Alabama and Mississippi, which also rank pretty high. Alabama actually has the #1 county for percentages. That's 54%. I'm assuming a lot of those residents are working in Atlanta or just like on the outskirts of them too. This is actually a fascinating map. I feel like I could make an entire video about this. There's really like a lot to examine here. These major Latin American cities are now safer than some US cities. And actually, I am not surprised. Doing my own travels, I've realized just how dangerous a lot of the US is. So in the early 2000s, a lot of places like Sao Paulo, Brazil, or Buenos Aires really high on the list. Although Santiago, Chile has always remained pretty low. Now, over the last 20 years, a lot of these places have seen a significant decline in homicide rate. Meanwhile, US cities like Philadelphia, Las Vegas, and Minneapolis remain stubbornly high. I'm surprised to see Denver here. I've never been to Denver, but I didn't think it was that dangerous. Guess I was wrong. Wait, New York and Boston is more safe than Honolulu? Another place that's kind of been on the rise is Santiago, Chile. It started off a little bit lower and it's kind of slightly increased. Mexico City is now safer than San Antonio, Texas, or at least in terms of homicide. The Ohio of each European country. Naples, Italy. Birmingham in the United Kingdom. Wait, Dublin in Ireland? Come on. I have heard of this city in the Netherlands. I was told never to come here. Always kind of a scary thing to hear. Belarus is just Belarus. They are their own Ohio. Athens, Greece. Okay, so I'm not sure how accurate all of these are. It seems like sometimes they just didn't know what else to put. Konya in Turkey. Oh, of course, that like weird river nation that Moldova has. Geneva in Switzerland. Okay, I understand like when you're forcing Ohio upon every country, you probably don't always have a lot of great choices. Maybe it's just the best they can come up with. I do see a couple, like I've seen evidence that some people would back up. It truly is all Ohio, and it always has been. Now, everyone from Europe can understand the Ohio memes. It is incredible to me that Ohio has somehow out-memed Florida as of the last like 2 years. What is actually going on? The islands of Bermuda is nearly 7% Gulf golf course. Golfing covers roughly 1.4 square miles of the 20 square mile island, which I guess shouldn't be surprising considering this is like where all the rich people go. I want to know how much percentage this airport takes. This thing is huge. I mean, it kind of has to be. I'm not really surprised about that. I now just randomly became curious how long it would take you to get to the airport to the faraway golf course. It's only about a 40-minute drive. That's not too bad. I guess it helps that Bermuda is pretty tiny. I feel like looking at the satellite imagery is even more crazy because you see where people are living and then you just see this giant golf course and you can see it throughout the whole island, all of it. Like there, you can actually pinpoint where the golf courses are, or like just where the parks are in general. How many people can they really fit on this thing? Oh, I guess the answer is about 63,000. Which country has the most attractive men? This is just too good for me to not do. After seeing several of the other maps that showed just attractive people in general, this isn't actually all that surprising. Most of the time, a lot of this continent was still picking Italy, except for a lot of Western Europe, they were picking Spain. Now, however, a lot of these places are going back with Italy. There is a European unification on this subject. Italy must have really hot men. What's really interesting are the European countries that are picking Brazil. There's Belarus, Czechia, Belgium, and of course Portugal. I mean, that's just sweet actually. Portugal picking their own little family member. Wait, why did I say it like that? And there's a lot of countries that border Greece that are picking Greece. Ireland even picked Greece. I feel like this really comes down to like which places have the most marble statues, like with shirtless dudes. And then once again, Italy always picking Sweden. We saw this same thing last time as well. Like Latvia and Slovakia picking Spain though, there are still a couple Spain stands. Still, it always comes down to those Romance language countries. Well, I mean, sorry, Romania. People love these shaded relief maps. Here's one of Africa. And I think part of the reason is the exaggerated geography really helps people like comprehend more. Like even for me, and I stare at maps like all day. One part of Africa that I've always found interesting is this area of Morocco. Very lush, very green, yet these mountains are acting as a wall to shield the Sahara Desert away. Then on the other side of things, we have Egypt, and this explains exactly why Egypt has such strange population density. Literally like 90% of the country live along the Nile River, and I think it's understandable why. Also, the nations along the Ivory Coast really have a lot of green to work with, even though the Sahara Desert is approaching from the north. Look at the diversity in South Africa as well. There's like jaggedy desert mountains towards the west, and then yet like green, lush mountains over here in the east. I forget it's very arid actually in this part of the continent. Then a giant green forest here in the Congo. And for anyone wondering why Ethiopia has been so hard for people to conquer in history, this explains why. That just looks like a complete mess to have to fight in. Then there's Madagascar, which I always think is pretty flat, but clearly not. The United States, as James K. Polk wanted it, is the U.S.'s 11th president, and he's mainly known for the U.S.-Mexico War. So he was going to unify California with all of Baja California, and instead of setting up the border along this river, he was going to go way into Mexico. He was even going to eat up a little bit of the Yucatan Peninsula. That's how you know he was getting crazy with it. And the U.S. has always wanted Cuba. Cuba holds a very strategic position in the Gulf of Mexico. We've always wanted Cuba. This place was still under control of Spain, though, so I'm not sure exactly how we would have gotten that from Mexico. Also, very small detail, but he wanted to take this part of British Columbia too. He actually might have wanted even more. Safe to say this would have changed things forever. The most valuable football or soccer players in every European country. And this is making me wish I really played a lot more soccer when I was younger. I love comparing some of these prices. For a lot of the European city-states, they're not really giving out that much money. I'm also assuming the bigger countries that are fans of football are going to be willing to spend a lot more. For instance, England at 110 million versus Finland at 7.5 million. Maybe Finland is a big fan of soccer. I just imagine they probably are more focused on hockey. This dude in Norway, though, is getting paid bang. He's up there with France, although he still has this French dude beat. I actually just assumed that Spain and Portugal would be spending a lot more. Germany also at 100 million. Dang, is it too late in my life to pick up soccer? How much does the Vatican City pay the Pope? Top 2022 trends in every U.S. state, brought to us by Disruptive Links. You can see as major TV shows pop up, Betty White when she passed. We have Bad Bunny in a lot of the states down there. Los Angeles Rams, because we had the Super Bowl. Euphoria pops back up. Shaun White. The Lost Ark. I don't even remember what that is. Mary J. Blige. People are remembering who she is. Here we have the Ukrainian invasion. This is actually slightly before, right? So this is going to pop up. Oh, maybe it was around the same time. Elden Ring, big video game over the last year, maybe the biggest of them all. Disney tickets. I don't know why that popped up in California. Wow, Morbius. I forgot about the most epic movie ever. Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp. It wasn't even Johnny Depp that was being searched through a lot of the states. It was just Amber. Amber Heard again coming back into the trends. Now Johnny Depp pops up. Man, the whole country was just obsessed with that. And a lot of the world. I reviewed a lot of maps that were very focused on that. A lot of places in South America were focused on that trial more than they were Ukraine, which was crazy. Again, Disney tickets. What is going on in California? Stranger Things. Of course, this is using Google Trends. So this is anything Googled across all of Google. Ricky Martin. We have concerts, which is a big thing, I guess, in July. Those are big concert times. The recession in July. That's definitely going to pop up again. Andrew Tate starts taking over, defeats She-Hulk completely. Wow. House of the Dragon has its moment in the sun for a little bit there. What was that toddler thing? Queen Elizabeth, when she passed. Who is the queen? Okay, we have a couple states. Who is the queen of England? Now, are these places... Oh, who is the king? I thought they were saying who is the queen of England. That would have been different. Okay, so these states are just staying on top of it. They want to know who's next in line. Oh, literally, that's what Nebraska was searching for. Jeffrey Dahmer, that show. Overwatch 2, Unholy... Blink-182 popped back up. Couple of sports teams. California's just been doing some weird stuff, but also California's big, so I'm sure like the text is just like really easy to see. Early voting. Vermont randomly just always looking for concert tickets. I don't know why. Vermont just doesn't care about anything else that's going on. There's literally so many little details you can look back at. And I really haven't even paid attention to a lot of the smaller states in the Northeast. Maryland out here searching in February, help Ukraine army. They ain't sitting back like the rest of us just watching Euphoria. This makes me just really feel like a boomer because a lot of this stuff I didn't remember. Countries of the world which have banned Discord. I'm trying to think, how do you describe Discord for someone that doesn't know? I don't even really know what it is. A voice, video, and text chat app. There we go. Let's keep it simple. Obviously in the US, Discord is not banned. It's also available in all of Europe. On a completely unsurprising note, China has banned it, and so has North Korea. These places, however, pretty much ban everything though. Then there's also Iran. They are not big fans of Discord. But here are the surprises. Oman, UAE, and Egypt have all decided to ban it. How did that happen? And then there's actually a few other places in this region where we're unsure. We don't know if it's banned or not. It seems like a pretty easy thing to find out. Can we have someone just Google Discord and see if they can download it? So 6 places have it blocked, but I'm sure if you're from one of these countries, you can still find a way to get it. Sometimes the internet service provider has just instilled restrictions, or like certain aspects of Discord isn't available. I'm wondering if Russia might ban it one day. The main reason why this app has been banned is usually due to censorship policies. So these places have strict censorship regulations. Or maybe a government regulator from all these nations saw the Durnil Discord at one point and they were just like, no. A similar map showing where VPNs are restricted, or sometimes just straight up illegal if you're from one of these spots. So Belarus, Iraq, Turkmenistan, and North Korea have completely gotten rid of VPNs. Whereas Russia, Turkey, Iran, China, UAE, and Oman have just put heavy restrictions on them. I'm wondering if these restrictions just don't allow you to go to any part of the world. There actually might be even more places with VPN restrictions. It's just hard to define exactly what those restrictions are. So Uganda and Venezuela included in this one as well. And there's some spots where we're uncertain about, like in Vietnam, Cuba, and Egypt as well. We're not entirely sure what their laws might be. Wait, in Taiwan, you can use a VPN. And big thanks to my patrons. Drew, I'm stalking you and will kidnap you December 27th, 2022. DJ McSkillet, aPhatNarwhal. Drew's Argentinian $20 is a lottery. Bring back Evan Pryce. GoodOldRyah. Kilgore LuxembourgLover. Gamer Bassall 69. Patrick. Phresh Animations. RyeThePie. Scottish Tokyo. If you hear this, I love you. The Mexican Twickenhamster. And why am I doing this?